Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to look at JavaScript prototype, a very important topic in JavaScript. First, we will go by the definition. So prototype allow us to add new property and methods to an object or function. It's that simple. Basically, an object can access property or method of another object. Okay, let me ask you something. So we have used predefined methods of an array like push, pop, length, right? So how we are able to access these predefined method? It's all because of prototype, right? Let me show you. I have declared one array here, and if I do array dot, you can see I can use the predefined property push, right? Also I can use pop, and these predefined properties I'm able to access because of prototype. So every array object in JavaScript has some by default prototype property, right? So if I print this, you can see inside this array there is a prototype, and inside this prototype you can see all the inbuilt method of array are present, like fill, filter, find index, right? So this is how we are able to access the predefined property. And this is not only about array, like we can see this for object also. So if I show you, let's say if print object one dot to local string, right? So this is a predefined property. Again, this is coming from where? It is coming from prototype. Inside prototype there is a predefined method like has on property is prototype of, right? So now we are going to create our prototype and we are going to do some code. So please keep watching because interesting part is coming now. Okay, so we have heard about underscore underscore proto, right? So underscore underscore proto used to link one object, method or property to another object, right? So here we have one parent object. Inside this object, I have already defined one property called name and another get name, right? And now there is one more object, child object, which has the property first name. So if I do child object dot first name, I will get Aditya, right? Because this property is defined inside this object only. But what if I want to use this parent object property called name or get name inside this child object? So I can do this by defining underscore underscore proto. And then I will do parent object, right? Now, if I try to access child object dot name, it will give me sid, right? And not only this, if I try to access get name, again it will give me set because I am printing this dot name here. So this is how using underscore underscore proto I can access the property of parent object, right? But one more thing here, like how it we are able to access this. So if I print child object, you can see inside child object I have this first name property which I defined in my object. Other than that, we have this prototype, right? Inside this prototype we have this get name and name property of parent object. So this is how we are able to access the get name and name. And as I already told you that we have in object array function, it we have by default prototype. So this one is that by default prototype which is having all the by predefined methods of object, right? So this is how we are able to access the child object dot name using underscore underscore proto, right? One more thing I want to explain here, like we have defined name inside the parent object, and if we are doing child object dot name, it is giving me set because it is defined in parent object and I'm using prototype, right? But what if I define the same name property inside child object with a different name? Now, what child object dot name will print? It will print John. Let me show you. Child object dot name. You can see it is printing John. Why? Because prototype works as a bottom to top approach, right? If I print this child object, you can see I have the property first name and name inside child object, and then inside prototype I have this get name name. So first JS will look into the child object itself that if it's having this name property or not. If it is not having this name property, then it will go to the prototype, right? So here the name property is already defined here, that's why it's giving me the John. But what if there is one more property I can add, let's say last name, and I will write ABC, right? Now again, if I refresh and then if I do child object dot last name, it will give me ABC. Why? Because first is try to look into the object itself. So here inside the object, it will not find the last name. Then it will go to prototype and will see, oh, okay, the last name is here. So it will print from there. So this is how the prototype works. Now I'm going to talk about the use case of prototype, like why we use prototype, right? So here I have defined a constructor function. Inside this, you can see I've defined two property, name and subject. Now let's see. I will create a student one instance of this object, and when I'm going to use student one dot name, it will give me John, right? Same, I can create one more instance like student two, and again, if I do student two dot name, it will give me John, right? So both this instance can use the property of this dot name, right? Now let's say I will define a method here, this dot get subject. So get sub, which will return this dot subject, right? So again, both this instance can use the this dot get subject. So if I do student dot get sub, you can see it will return math. Same if I do with student one, it will return math. But the problem with this is that, first of all, it will use more memory, right? Because whenever we define something in the constructor using this and create an instance of that object, so it will create a copy of that method, right? So here, if we create two instances, student one and student two, it will create two copy of this method, right? And it will take more memory. So how we can resolve this problem using prototype, right? So instead of defining this method inside the constructor, I will define it as a prototype. So let's say I will remove it from here, and then I will define it as a prototype using prototype keyword. Dot same function I will define with the same logic, and I will say return this dot subject, right? And now again, if you will see, if I access try to access student one dot get name or get subject, sorry, get subject, it will give me maths, right? So now instead of defining it inside the constructor, I have defined it as a prototype. And the uses of this, it will use less memory, because now every time the instance of that object will be created, this method will not create one more copy, right? So this method will create once. That's why we use prototype, right? And also, whenever we define any prototype, it will be shared among all the instances. So now if I create one more instance like stud free and same new student, so this student tree also can access the get sub, right? So this is how the prototype can be used, right? So hope you understood prototype, and if you have any queries, you can comment below and I'm happy to resolve it. Thanks. Keep learning.